Kian moved carefully through the dimly lit maintenance tunnels of the colony. The hum of machinery echoed faintly, mixing with the distant drip of water somewhere deep below the surface. He had been tasked with inspecting old ventilation lines, but his curiosity often led him off the expected path. Today, that curiosity guided him toward a narrow, hidden corridor he had never noticed before. The walls here were older, lined with faded markings that seemed almost decorative, rather than practical. Something about the place made his pulse quicken. He crouched and stepped through a low archway, brushing away cobwebs. The air changed immediately cooler, still, and carrying a faint scent of earth and old stone. Ahead, he could see faint light spilling through cracks in the ceiling, creating long, golden streaks across the floor. Kian's eyes widened. He had stumbled upon something unexpected. As he moved forward, the corridor opened into a small chamber. The walls were carved with intricate designs, symbols he did not recognize but somehow felt familiar. At the center stood a raised platform, as if meant for ceremonies long forgotten. Kian felt a shiver of awe. Here, beneath the colony, was a hidden chapel, abandoned but still full of quiet dignity. He took a cautious step closer, brushing his fingers over the smooth stone. The carvings seemed to tell stories, humans working together, building, learning, helping each other. Some figures even appeared to be in harmony with strange alien forms, showing cooperation that spanned worlds. Kian marveled at the artistry and the message of hope it carried. Humanity had always been clever, resilient, but here was proof that their creativity and spirit could be immortalized. Suddenly, a soft sound made him freeze. A light footstep echoed from the other side of the room. Kian's heart skipped a beat. He had not expected anyone else to find this hidden place. Slowly, he rounded the platform and saw her, a young woman examining one of the carvings with quiet fascination. She had dark hair tied back neatly and wore the simple uniform of a colony historian. Her name, he would soon learn, was Myra. "Hello," Kian said, his voice low but friendly. "I didn't expect anyone else to be here." Myra looked up, startled, but her expression softened when she saw him. "Neither did I," she replied. "I've been researching old colony records, and they mentioned a chapel underground. I wanted to see it for myself." Kian nodded, intrigued. "I was just exploring. It seems we both have a taste for curiosity." For a moment, they studied the carvings together in silence. Kian noticed the way Myra's eyes lingered on the details, the gentle tilt of her head when she tried to understand the stories etched into the stone. She was thoughtful, intelligent, and completely absorbed in the history around her. Kian felt a spark of admiration. "This place is incredible," Myra whispered. "It's as if the builders wanted to show that humans can work together, even with others who are different from us. It's hopeful." Kian smiled. "Yes. I think it reminds us that no matter how far we travel or how lonely we feel, we can still leave something meaningful behind." They moved around the room, pointing out different carvings and speculating about their origins. Kian found himself enjoying not just the discovery but the company. Myra's knowledge complemented his curiosity perfectly, and there was a quiet joy in sharing the wonder of the chapel with someone who understood it. As they explored, the light from the cracks above shifted, casting long shadows across the walls. Kian noticed how the soft glow highlighted Myra's features, her focused expression, the way she reached out to trace a carving, the faint smile that appeared when something amused her. A strange, unspoken connection began to form between them, a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and gentle excitement. By the time they paused near the entrance of another narrow corridor, both were aware that this was no ordinary discovery. The chapel was special, and so was the moment they were sharing. Kian felt a sense of anticipation, a quiet thrill that perhaps this hidden place was not just a relic of the past, but the beginning of something new for both history and for them. "Shall we explore further?" Kian asked, trying to keep his voice casual, though his heart was pounding. Myra nodded, her eyes sparkling. "Yes, together." And with that, they stepped deeper into the hidden chapel, unaware of the mysteries and connections waiting just ahead. Kian and Myra stepped carefully down the narrow corridor, their footsteps echoing softly against the stone walls. The faint glow from the cracks above followed them like a guiding path. The air smelled faintly of earth and candle smoke, as if the chapel had been alive not so long ago. Every step seemed to deepen the mystery, drawing them further from the busy colony above and closer to the secrets hidden in the shadows. "This place is much larger than I imagined," Myra said, her voice quiet but full of wonder. She paused to run her hand along the wall, tracing the carvings that lined it. "Look at these patterns. They're not just decoration, they tell a story." Kian leaned closer, examining the symbols. "It's like a history lesson in stone. Someone wanted their story to last forever." He glanced at Myra and saw the spark in her eyes, the same excitement he felt. "Do you know what any of these mean?" Myra shook her head. "Not completely, but some of the shapes, they look like ancient maps, maybe of colonies long gone. And these figures seem to show people helping each other, learning, building, even sharing with other beings. It's beautiful." As they walked, they found a small alcove filled with old relics, fragments of pottery, a few broken lanterns, and a carved box that seemed to hum softly when Kian touched it. The artifacts were worn with age but carefully preserved. Kian lifted the box and turned it in his hands. "Who do you think owned this?" Myra shrugged. "Perhaps someone who cared deeply about this place. They must have been important to protect these items. Maybe the chapel was more than just a gathering space, it was a symbol of hope for the colony." They sat down on a low stone bench, their shoulders brushing lightly. Kian felt a warmth spread through him at the contact. It was subtle but pleasant, a reminder that exploring together was already forming a bond beyond curiosity. Myra noticed his attention and smiled softly, not saying anything, but the moment lingered between them. After a few minutes, Kian's curiosity got the better of him. "I've always wondered," he said, "why the colony would hide a place like this. Surely someone knew it was here. Why let it fall into silence?" Myra considered the question, tapping her fingers gently on her lap. "Perhaps they wanted it to remain a secret until the right moment. Or until someone who truly cared could find it. It's like, the chapel was waiting for us." Kian laughed softly. "Waiting for us? That's a bit dramatic, don't you think?" "Maybe," Myra replied, "but sometimes history has a way of choosing its witnesses." She paused and looked at him, her gaze thoughtful. "I'm glad it chose us." The corridor opened into a larger chamber, revealing a series of murals stretching along the walls. The images were vivid, showing humans and alien allies working side by side, building structures, sharing knowledge, and celebrating achievements. Light from the ceiling cracks made the colors shimmer, even though centuries had faded them. "This is amazing," Kian breathed. He reached out to touch the mural, careful not to damage it. "It's like they wanted everyone to remember the best of us, the part that helps, learns, and grows together." Myra nodded, leaning closer to examine the artwork. "And it's proof that humans can accomplish incredible things. Even in the toughest circumstances, we find ways to connect and thrive. That's what makes us remarkable. Her words carried a quiet passion, and Kian felt a flutter in his chest. As they explored, they shared stories about their own lives. Kian spoke about the lonely days working in the colony's engineering tunnels, far from friends and family. Myra shared her fascination with history and the joy she felt uncovering forgotten stories. Each story built understanding between them, creating a bridge of trust and admiration. The chapel, with its serene atmosphere, became a safe space for them to open up in ways they hadn't with anyone else. At one point, Kian accidentally knocked over a small stone piece from the mural. It made a soft clatter on the floor. Both froze for a moment, then Myra laughed softly, easing the tension. "It's okay. The chapel seems to understand our curiosity. It wants us to learn, not to fear." Kian smiled, relieved. "I'm glad you're here with me. Exploring alone wouldn't feel the same." Myra met his gaze, and for a moment, words were unnecessary. The connection between them was growing, quiet but unmistakable. They were partners in discovery, sharing a space that felt timeless, where the past whispered and the present mattered even more. As the light began to fade in the chamber, Kian suggested, "Let's find the next section. I have a feeling there's more waiting for us." Myra nodded, standing and brushing dust from her clothes. "Yes, together." Hand in hand, they stepped further into the underground chapel, unaware that this adventure would not only uncover the secrets of history but also awaken a bond that neither of them had expected, a connection built on shared wonder, respect, and the quiet beginnings of something deeper. The corridor narrowed again as Kian and Myra moved forward, their steps echoing softly against the stone walls. The glow from the ceiling cracks faded, replaced by the soft illumination of a few small crystals embedded in the walls. Their light shimmered, casting gentle reflections that danced across the carvings and murals. It was as if the chapel itself was alive, guiding them deeper into its secrets. "I wonder how far this place goes," Kian whispered, careful not to disturb the quiet reverence of the chamber. "It feels endless." Myra tilted her head, studying the walls. "It does. But every turn and every carving seems deliberate. Whoever built this wanted it to be discovered in stages, like a story unfolding slowly." They rounded a corner and discovered a small staircase carved directly into the rock. The steps were narrow and worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. At the bottom, a heavy stone door blocked their path. The door had no visible handle, only a circular indentation in the center. Around it were more carvings, geometric shapes interlocking in a pattern that seemed to shift when they looked at it from different angles. "This looks complicated," Kian said, crouching to examine the door. "It's some kind of puzzle." Myra knelt beside him, her fingers tracing the patterns carefully. "It's clever. Whoever built this wanted to protect what's behind it. It's not just locked, it's earned." Kian smiled. "Then I guess we better earn it." The two began to study the shapes, moving pieces in the circular indentation, sliding patterns along hidden grooves. It required careful coordination, as each move affected another part of the puzzle. Sometimes their hands brushed, sending sparks of unexpected warmth through them. Neither spoke for a few moments, concentrating entirely on the task, yet each noticed the subtle closeness growing between them. "Try rotating this piece," Myra suggested softly, pointing to a segment near the top. Kian did as she indicated, and a quiet click echoed through the chamber. Another piece shifted slightly. "It's working," he said, grinning. "We're a good team." Myra laughed lightly, the sound echoing off the walls. I'd say so. And teamwork is important, isn't it? She glanced at him briefly, and in that moment, a shared understanding passed between them, not just about the puzzle, but about the trust and patience they were learning from each other. Minutes passed, their hands working in tandem, eyes meeting occasionally with quiet smiles. Finally, with one careful adjustment, the central piece clicked into place. The heavy stone door rumbled and slowly swung open, revealing a small, hidden chamber bathed in warm, golden light. At the center of the chamber rested a small crystal on a pedestal. It glowed softly, pulsating like a heartbeat. Kian approached it cautiously, mesmerized. Myra stepped beside him, equally captivated. "It's beautiful," Myra whispered. "It feels alive." Kian nodded, his hand hovering above the crystal. "It's like it's been waiting for us. I wonder what it's for." They circled the pedestal, examining the crystal from every angle. The warmth it emitted was gentle, soothing, almost comforting. Kian realized it wasn't just a relic, it was a symbol, a piece of history that had survived through centuries. And now, they were part of its story. As they stood there, shoulder to shoulder, Kian felt a quiet connection with Myra unlike anything he had experienced before. It wasn't just admiration or friendship, it was a bond formed through shared discovery, trust, and mutual curiosity. Myra noticed it too, feeling a subtle thrill at being side by side with someone who respected her mind, shared her wonder, and seemed to understand her in ways others rarely did. "This place," Myra began, her voice soft, "it's more than a chapel. It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, humans can create beauty, can protect what matters, can work together." Kian nodded, looking at the crystal and then at Myra. "And sometimes, we need someone beside us to see it fully. To understand it. To share it." Myra met his gaze, and for a long moment, the world outside the underground chapel disappeared. The warmth of the crystal, the quiet of the chamber, the shared adventure, they were all part of a memory being created, a bond being formed that neither had anticipated. Finally, Kian broke the silence. "Shall we take a closer look around? There might be more hidden treasures waiting for us." Myra smiled, her eyes sparkling with curiosity and something more, something tender that neither of them had yet named. "Yes." Together, hand in hand, they stepped further into the hidden chamber, ready to uncover more secrets of the chapel. Every turn, every discovery, was not just about history, it was about trust, friendship, and the subtle beginnings of a connection that promised to grow with every step they took together. The deeper they went into the underground chapel, the quieter it became. Even the faint hum of the colony above seemed to fade away, leaving only the soft echo of their footsteps and the occasional drip of water from the walls. Kian and Myra walked side by side, moving slowly to take in every detail. The air was cooler here, carrying the faint scent of stone and something almost like old parchment, as if the chapel itself remembered centuries of stories. They reached a small circular chamber. Its walls were lined with carvings of people in quiet moments, someone reading, another sharing food, a child playing. The images were simple but full of life. Kian knelt down to examine them closely. "It's incredible," he murmured. "Even after all this time, you can feel their emotions." Myra crouched beside him, her fingers brushing lightly over the carvings. "Yes. They weren't just preserving history, they were preserving feelings. Moments of care and connection." She looked up at him, and Kian felt a strange warmth spread through his chest. There was something about her presence that made the chamber feel even more alive. For a while, they explored in silence, each lost in thought. Then Kian spoke, his voice quieter than usual. Sometimes, I feel alone. Even in a place like this, surrounded by people above ground, it's easy to feel forgotten. I came here because I wanted to find something that mattered, something real. Myra listened intently, her eyes softening. I understand, she said gently. I've always loved history because it reminds me that people's lives are remembered, even long after they're gone. But I also know what it feels like to feel invisible, like your work and your efforts don't matter. Kian turned to look at her. Her expression was sincere, open, and it made him feel a little less exposed, a little less alone. It's strange, he said, how finding this place, and finding you, it feels like I'm not so invisible anymore. Myra smiled softly, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. And I feel the same. It's not just the chapel, it's sharing it with someone who understands its meaning. Someone who sees it the way I do. The chamber had a small bench made of smooth stone. Kian gestured toward it. Shall we sit for a moment? They sat down, shoulders almost touching, the silence of the chapel wrapping around them like a warm blanket. Kian stared at the carvings, but his mind kept drifting to Myra. There was a quiet courage in her, a curiosity and kindness that drew him in. He realized he trusted her already, in a way that was rare. Myra glanced at him, noticing his thoughtful expression. You're thinking a lot, she said with a hint of amusement. Kian chuckled softly. I'm thinking about how strange life is, how we spend so much time rushing, worrying about work, rules, responsibilities, and then a place like this reminds you of what really matters. People. Connection. Moments that last. Myra nodded, her gaze following his. Exactly. It's not about how far we go or how much we accomplish. It's about what we share, the experiences that shape us. That's why this chapel is special. It's a place for reflection, for remembering who we are and what we can be. Kian felt a quiet courage rise inside him. He had never shared so much with someone he had just met, yet it felt natural, necessary even. I'm glad I met you, Myra, he said softly. Being here, with you, it makes everything feel meaningful. Myra's smile deepened. I feel the same, Kian. It's rare to find someone who sees the world the way you do, someone who makes the silence feel like it's full of possibilities. For a few moments, they simply sat there, letting the quiet of the chapel surround them. The air was calm, almost sacred, and the glow from the nearby crystals bathed them in soft light. They didn't need to speak, their shared presence was enough. Finally, Kian stood, extending his hand to Myra. Shall we continue? I have a feeling there's even more waiting for us deeper inside. Myra took his hand without hesitation, letting him help her to her feet. Yes. Together, she said, her voice firm yet warm. Hand in hand, they walked further into the chapel, each step strengthening the bond forming between them. The chapel's mysteries were still ahead, but the true discovery, they realized, was the trust and connection growing quietly between them. It was a bond born of shared wonder, mutual respect, and the subtle realization that sometimes, the most important journey isn't just through tunnels and history but through hearts that finally meet. That evening, the colony above ground experienced a rare celestial event. The twin moons aligned perfectly, creating a soft, silver glow that filtered down through hidden cracks in the chapel ceiling. Kian and Myra were still deep inside, exploring a section of the chapel they had not yet discovered. When the faint light touched the walls, it illuminated murals they had not noticed before, making the carvings shimmer as if they were alive. "Look at this," Myra whispered, pointing to a series of images showing people celebrating together under the stars. "It's almost like the builders wanted to capture moments like this quiet, magical nights." Kian nodded, his eyes following her gaze. The silver light made the carvings even more vivid, highlighting the expressions of joy and wonder in the figures. He felt a thrill, realizing that they were experiencing something few people had ever seen. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "And we're seeing it together. That makes it even more special." Myra smiled, a quiet warmth in her expression. "Yes. It feels alive. Like the chapel itself is sharing this moment with us." They moved to a small stone balcony carved into the wall, where the light of the moons poured through a narrow opening. From this vantage point, they could see more of the underground chambers, the intricate carvings, and the faint crystal glow reflecting off the walls. Kian leaned on the railing, glancing at Myra. "I've never seen anything like this," he admitted. "It's almost magical." Myra stood close, her shoulder brushing his. "It's rare to find a place that reminds you how small we are, yet how much we can experience and create. That's why history is so important. It shows us what people can do when they care." Kian felt a flutter in his chest. Her words, her presence, the soft glow of the moons, all of it combined to make him aware of something deeper than curiosity or admiration. He realized he was drawn to her in a way he had never felt before. There was a connection forming, quiet but undeniable. "Do you ever think about the people who built this?" he asked, keeping his voice low. "What they felt, what they hoped for?" Myra nodded. "All the time. I imagine their excitement, their fear, their care for each other and for the future. And I think, they would be happy to know someone is still seeing their work, appreciating it." Kian glanced at her, noticing the way her eyes reflected the silver light. "I'm glad I get to see it with you," he said, his voice sincere. "It's better than I could have imagined." Myra looked at him, and for a moment, words were unnecessary. The chapel seemed to hold its breath with them, as if acknowledging the quiet bond forming. Kian felt his hand brush hers accidentally. They both paused, a gentle tension in the air, neither pulling away. The touch was brief, but it carried warmth, trust, and a spark of something unspoken. Breaking the silence, Myra laughed softly, a sound that lightened the moment. "We should keep moving. There may be more waiting for us." Kian nodded, still aware of her hand near his. "Yes. Together," he said. They continued deeper into the chapel, discovering a series of alcoves filled with carvings of people working together, sharing knowledge, building structures, helping each other. The more they explored, the more Kian realized that the chapel was not just a relic of the past. It was a testament to humanity's spirit, resilient, compassionate, and creative. Myra paused in one alcove, tracing a figure in the stone. "It's amazing how much care went into every detail," she said. "Even centuries later, it still tells a story." Kian smiled. "It reminds me that even small acts matter. That the things we do, the people we care about, can leave a lasting impact." He glanced at Myra, noticing the same realization reflected in her eyes. For the next few minutes, they explored quietly, sharing observations and small laughs, their shoulders brushing occasionally. The chapel's atmosphere encouraged reflection, conversation, and connection. Kian felt his admiration for Myra growing with every passing moment. He appreciated not just her knowledge, but her curiosity, kindness, and the gentle way she made him feel understood. Finally, they returned to the balcony, watching as the light from the twin moons slowly shifted. The silver glow highlighted the carvings in new ways, revealing details they had missed before. Kian reached out and lightly touched Myra's hand this time, intentionally, feeling the warmth of her skin. She looked at him and smiled, squeezing his hand briefly. It was a quiet, unspoken promise, trust, partnership, and the beginnings of something more. As the celestial glow faded and the chamber grew dimmer, Kian and Myra sat together in companionable silence. The chapel had shown them not just history, but the beauty of shared discovery and the subtle beginnings of a deeper connection. For the first time, Kian realized that this adventure was no longer just about uncovering the secrets of the chapel. It was about building something lasting with someone who saw the world in the same way he did. And in that moment, he knew that whatever mysteries lay ahead, they would face them together. The next morning, Kian and Myra returned to the underground chapel, eager to continue their exploration. The air was cool and quiet, the same soft glow from the embedded crystals guiding their way. They moved with purpose, aware of the growing bond between them but focused on the mysteries that still lay ahead. As they descended a narrow passage, they noticed a faint tapping sound, like metal against stone. Kian paused, listening carefully. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. Myra nodded. "Yes, it sounds like someone is above ground. Perhaps a patrol." They exchanged a glance. The colony had strict rules about accessing hidden structures, especially ones as fragile and historical as this chapel. It wasn't forbidden, but officials frowned upon explorers going too far without reporting discoveries. Kian felt a moment of tension. "We have to be careful," he said. "If someone finds us here, it could cause trouble." Myra placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "We can handle it," she said confidently. "We just need to be smart and stick together." They moved forward cautiously and soon discovered a small chamber that appeared almost untouched. The walls were lined with intricate murals showing humans collaborating with alien allies, traders, engineers, scholars. Kian and Myra both paused, captivated by the story the murals told. "This is incredible," Kian whispered. "It's a reminder that humans can do amazing things when we work together, even with those who are different from us." Myra nodded, brushing her fingers lightly over the carvings. "And it's proof that kindness, intelligence, and patience can leave a mark that lasts centuries. I'm glad we get to see it together." Kian felt a quiet warmth at her words, a reminder of the trust and companionship they had built. He realized that this bond was more than friendship, it was partnership, a connection forged through shared curiosity and respect. As they explored further, Kian noticed a small side door partially hidden by a wall. It appeared fragile, as if it hadn't been opened for decades. He tested it gently, and it swung open with a soft creak. Behind it was another chamber, filled with ancient artifacts, small tools, fragments of pottery, and a beautifully carved box resting on a stone pedestal. Myra gasped softly. "It's amazing, someone preserved this with care. This could be a key to understanding the chapel's history." Kian approached the box cautiously. "Let's be careful. We don't know how delicate it is." Together, they examined the carvings on the box and discovered a small mechanical puzzle, similar to the one they had solved earlier. It required patience and coordination to unlock. Kian smiled. "Looks like we get another challenge." Myra laughed softly. "I like challenges, especially when we do them together." They began working on the puzzle, moving pieces in harmony. Sometimes their hands brushed, sending subtle shivers of warmth through both of them. The tension between them was quiet but undeniable, a mix of excitement, trust, and admiration. Step by step, click by click, the mechanism began to shift. Finally, with a gentle push from Myra and a careful adjustment by Kian, the box opened, revealing a small crystal that glowed softly from within. Its warmth was gentle, comforting, as if the chapel itself was acknowledging their success. Kian and Myra exchanged a glance, smiles spreading across their faces. "We did it," Kian said, his voice filled with quiet triumph. Myra nodded, squeezing his hand briefly. "Together," she said, her eyes reflecting both pride and something tender, unspoken. Just as they were about to continue their exploration, the faint sound of voices echoed from above. Kian tensed. "Officials," he whispered. "We need to decide, do we report them or stay hidden?" Myra looked at him with steady determination. "We protect this place. We've come this far, and it's worth preserving. But we can be smart about it. Follow me." They slipped into a narrow side passage, moving silently until the voices faded. The incident reminded them of the responsibility they carried not just for the chapel's history, but for each other. Their teamwork, trust, and quiet understanding had never been more important. As they returned to the main chamber, Kian glanced at Myra. "I'm glad we faced that together," he said. "It makes me realize how much I rely on you, in every way." Myra smiled softly, brushing her fingers lightly against his. "And I rely on you. We make a good team, Kian. More than just explorers, we understand each other." The chapel seemed to embrace them in its quiet, ancient presence. Every challenge, every discovery, every shared glance strengthened the bond forming between them. They were partners, not just in uncovering history, but in the quiet journey of connection, trust, and the beginnings of a deeper feeling neither had yet named. Hand in hand, Kian and Myra continued their exploration, ready to face whatever mysteries and challenges awaited, knowing that together, they could overcome anything. The sun was beginning to rise over the colony, casting warm light through the cracks of the underground chapel. Kian and Myra had spent days exploring its tunnels, chambers, and hidden relics. Each discovery had brought them closer, not just in admiration for the chapel's history, but in a bond of trust, respect, and quiet affection. The crystal they had found earlier glowed softly in the chamber, reflecting the morning light in gentle, golden patterns. "We've seen so much," Myra said, her voice filled with wonder. "I never imagined a place like this existed, and I certainly didn't expect to share it with someone like you." Kian smiled, brushing a loose strand of hair from his forehead. "I feel the same. This chapel, it's incredible. But I think the most amazing part of all this has been discovering it with you." They walked slowly toward the main chamber, taking one last look at the murals and carvings that told stories of humans working together, celebrating achievements, and helping one another across generations. Each image seemed more vivid in the morning light, as if the chapel itself was acknowledging their presence, their care, and the respect they had shown. At the entrance of the chapel, the faint sound of footsteps echoed from above. A colony official had come to inspect the area after reports of unusual activity. Kian and Myra exchanged a glance, a mixture of concern and determination passing between them. They had a choice: hide or face the consequences. "We need to be honest," Myra whispered. "We've documented everything carefully. The colony will see the value of this place, and the importance of preserving it." Kian nodded, feeling a surge of confidence. "Together." "Together," Myra confirmed. When the official appeared at the entrance, Kian and Myra stepped forward, showing the careful notes, sketches, and photographs they had made. The official studied the materials, initially skeptical, but soon their expression softened. "You've done thorough work," the official said. "This chapel is more valuable than anyone realized. Your efforts, and your respect for this place, are commendable." Relief washed over Kian and Myra. They had not only protected the chapel but had ensured that its history would be preserved for future generations. The weight of responsibility felt lighter, and yet, it was accompanied by a sense of pride and accomplishment. Once the official left, the chamber fell quiet again. Kian and Myra stood together, hand in hand, taking in the space they had explored so deeply. The connection between them had grown beyond curiosity, respect, or shared adventure. It had become something tender, warm, and undeniable. Kian turned to Myra, his eyes reflecting the soft light of the crystal. "Myra, I think this journey wasn't just about the chapel. It was about finding someone who sees the world the way I do. Someone I can trust, admire, and care about." Myra's smile was gentle but full of emotion. "Kian, I feel the same. I've never felt so connected to anyone, not like this. Exploring history, facing challenges, sharing quiet moments, it's made me realize what really matters. And it's you." They stood there for a moment, the weight of their words settling between them. The chapel had given them more than knowledge of the past. It had given them understanding, partnership, and a bond that neither wanted to let go. Slowly, Kian leaned closer, and Myra met him halfway. Their foreheads touched lightly, a simple gesture full of warmth, trust, and promise. It was a moment of quiet celebration, a recognition of what they had discovered in each other as much as in the chapel. "I'm glad we did this together," Kian whispered. "Me too," Myra replied, her hand squeezing his gently. They walked toward the entrance one last time, pausing to take in the beauty of the underground chapel, its carvings, murals, and glowing crystals. It was a place of history, but now it was also a place of personal significance, a reminder of trust, curiosity, and connection. As they emerged into the bright morning light, hand in hand, the colony around them seemed fuller, warmer, and more alive. The adventure had ended, but the bond they had formed was only beginning. Together, they would continue exploring, discovering, and sharing the wonders of the world and of each other. Kian and Myra stood outside the chapel for a moment, letting the fresh air fill their lungs. "Do you think we'll ever stop exploring?" Myra asked with a playful smile. Kian chuckled. "Not likely. But now, I think we'll explore together, wherever life takes us." Myra nodded, her eyes shining. "Together." And with that, they walked back to the colony, side by side, ready to face new adventures, new discoveries, and the shared journey of a connection that had started in the quiet, mysterious glow of the underground chapel. Their story had begun with history, but it would continue with hope, trust, and the quiet magic of being together.